Kia ora, g'day, welcome back. Here with, I'm pretty sure this is part 9 of my reaction to Mr. Chris VanSant, former Delta Force operator on the Sean Ryan Show. So let's jump back in.
Know when our next hit's going to be. I think I got lucky that, again, timing, that my first deployment was Afghanistan, because back then it wasn't that bad. Like, they only did like 6 or 8 hits that entire rotation. I got there about midway through it, so I only did like 4 mission sets.
Really?
So I got some training time. Yeah, we did like a recce mission. My first thing with the team was a low vis, basically walk-in hit. And yeah, blew a bunch of doors, threw some flashbangs, didn't pull the trigger. I didn't pull the trigger once that first rotation to Afghanistan. So I got to integrate with the team. I got to learn. I got to realize how slow I was. Smash into a Afghani door and bust the bridge of my nose and pop the nods off my helmet on my very first target ever. Like, there's a lot of little moments in there. But being at war,
I just love I could easily sit and listen to this guy for a long time. I could gladly sit and have a chat with him too. Like, just the way that he communicates is awesome. Very chill, chillaxed approach about him seems to have. And just there'd be some good laughs. Just hearing him, his first initial recollection, not trying to, he doesn't need to, right? He doesn't need to try to fluff anything up and make it sound bigger and badder and better than anything else. Like, this is a guy to me who's legit, low-key, under the radar, talking about some of the mishaps that he had. First job that he went into, blinking, knocked the door or something, cracked the bridge of his nose, whacked his nods back or his NVGs. Never pulled the trigger on his first rotation. A couple of low-key, low-vis jobs, or his first low vis job, going into a building and a few flashbangs and that sort of thing, but never needed to squeeze the trigger. Just like credible. Like, that's the words I'm looking for. Not trying to make things sound more amped up than what they were or than what they need to be. Whereas some people, for whatever reason, take joy in trying to make it sound bigger, better, and more impressive than something else, and or, dare I say, exaggerating or just flat out lying. Like, that to me says a lot, just listening to him speak about it. The honesty, some of the mishaps and funny stuff that's happened to him personally, and probably no doubt to other people as well within his team. But pretty cool to be having that opportunity and to integrate. And his first deployment is to Afghanistan as an operator in Delta. Pretty awesome.
Joining that organization and a team at war, it was the stuff that you can't get in OTC. It was like, I'm on target in combat, hunting bad dudes, and your troop sergeant major's on the radio and he's deadpan calm. Roger that. This is 2-2. Blah 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 blah. You didn't even get that in the regular army in training. They'd get all fired up when you were at JRTC. Fake stuff going on, and it was just it was a really good way and a very real way to join something like that.
Wow. Just hearing him speak like that, I can understand, or I can relate to in my own way, of why it's sat with him and sits with him so clearly the way he's just spoken now. Going into a team of hitters like what he went into, who are in combat, that's where he first meets his team, his squadron. And his team leader is just that cool, calm, collected guy, like Wayne Weeks that I was speaking about earlier when I did a live reaction to an interview that he's done, basically calling out the blinking rubbish ADF leadership at the time and their treatment of the war crimes investigation, etc. So shout out to Wayne Weeks, former RSM Regimental Sergeant Major of the Special Air Service Regiment in Australia. 34-year career, with 29 of those years active full-time service in the Special Air Service Regiment itself. An incredible career, an awesome dude, but he's one of those cool, calm, collected guys that Chris has just described with his team leader. Like, there's levels to sports and levels to, professional sports and that sort of stuff. There's levels to soldiering, and I'm privileged to have witnessed some of that, and just hearing Chris speak about, that's why I say I can connect with that. I can resonate with what he shared in my own way, and think of other men that I am am cognizant of, including my own patrol commander and other senior operators within my troop itself.
When you got to Afghanistan, that's a real, I don't know how long were you there? Or how long was the deployment, if you can say?
Oh, their deployment was, well, some guys were there prior doing AFO stuff, but the squadron as a whole, I think, was there for 3.5 months.
3.5 months.
And I only caught like the tail end, so like a month and a half of that.
Maybe 8 hits in 3.5 months. Were you expecting more when you got there?
Yeah, I was.
Were you disappointed?
I would have thought he'd be expecting more, being at that pointy end of the spear and the nature of the type of work that Delta Force does and that they have the capability to do. Yeah, 8 doesn't sound like a lot of hits in, was it 3.5 months or whatever it is?
No. We did enough that, I mean, because don't get me wrong, like I was nervous and every night out, like I didn't know.
Yeah.
Even though the guys had said, you know, like some things that happened, there was a couple little things that had happened, but yeah, I mean, I wasn't disappointed. I felt like we got to do a little of a bunch of different things. You know, there was some funny stuff that happened, but I felt like I got to integrate with my team and get to know those guys. Because, you know, on a deployment, you get to know people on a different level.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like being home stateside where you go home every night. You're with them 24/7. So for me, I was really grateful, like for the way that it all worked out. Just getting to know those guys on that level, being forced to get up to speed as quickly as possible. Because you come at OTC and you think you're hot shit. And then you get there and you realize, oh my God, I had no idea how good these guys were at this. And I feel like they didn't teach me anything again.
Wow, man, that's awesome. That's super high praise. You know, when they go through there, is it Operator Training Center, OTC? Is it OTC or OTS? Operator Training School, maybe? Or Operator Training Course? I think it's OTC, so maybe it's course. Anyway, what he's describing or what he's speaking about there, or the parts that I recall him talking about at OTC anyway, sounds and seems like stuff that probably the only thing that I could really equate it to maybe the cycle of training in regards to NZ and Australian SAS and the process to get into eventually into the unit. Maybe that's what it is, but it's quite funny listening to him say that he and others, you know, thought that they were hot SHIT after completing their training through OTC. I think for me personally, maybe if I had have got badged in NZ, I don't know if I would have. I don't think I would have felt the same because I seen saw the level of some of those guys there, and we got bailed up a couple of times on other courses that we were doing on cycle by badged operators, which, you know, quickly pulled us into line whilst I was on cycle in NZ. So I was going to say maybe I might have thought I was hot SHIT if I had have got badged in the NZ one, but I don't think I would have, not after the memories that I just have come flooding back to me now and some of the operators that were there and just the understanding of the levels and the instruction that we were receiving. And so definitely, where was I going with that? Well, I definitely didn't feel like hot SHIT after the cycle in Australia. Like I just felt excited, super excited to, man, I've made it. I'm here in a squadron now. I've got the beret. You spend all that time working hard to earn the beret and then you bloody hardly ever wear it. It spends more time in your pocket or in the office, in your pigeonhole, or where it is right now, just sitting behind me on a shelf.
And so, yeah, but yeah, you quickly adapt and become a part of it. And then we I think we redeployed in like July timeframe, shortly after July 4th. And then that summer was basically when the churn started for prepping to potentially invade Iraq.
Before we go to Iraq, you showed up in a combat zone at the most capable unit in the fucking world. Probably nervous.
Terribly.
Nervous that the team's not going to like you. Nervous that you're going to combat.
Yeah.
Usually, from my own experience, when I see people show up mid-deployment, including myself, I've done it, and you're new, you're usually drawn to one particular person that kind of takes you under their wing.
Sure.
What was that for you?
Yeah, it was Brad Thomas. If folks out there have heard Brad's name, Brad started the band Silence in the Light. 100% of the proceeds from their music goes to charity. And Brad, I was from Delaware. Brad was from Maryland. Brad was a Somalia vet. 93 was in BCO 375 during the Black Hawk Down incident on October 3rd. And lived through all that, and then hung around and eventually became a unit operator. And he'd been through some stuff. And so I looked up to him right away. He sort of took me in right away.
Man, just imagine having somebody like that, having that level of experience, combat experience of what Chris has just described there, that guy's background, the that whole situation with regards to Black Hawk Down in Somalia, and just, wow. That's pretty awesome. For him, for Chris, or for anybody, had they had that same opportunity, or worked to earn the same opportunity that Chris obviously worked hard and earned. But man, that's awesome. I have to admit, I don't recall anybody in the regiment in Australia where I got to having that sort of level of experience. There may have been, but I didn't know anybody individually. But what I did walk into was a squadron whereby the vast majority of that squadron, except for us new plebs from our cycle, those that went to one squadron, had all had, as far as I was aware and understood, had operational experience, quite a bit of operational experience in terms of deployments wise. And I think at that stage, not only from Timor, where guys got into some stuff, and I've got a reaction video, a couple of videos to do on that Ghosts of Timor and things like that, which shout out to Buckaroo who sent that through, but also Afghanistan and stuff as well, which the guys were a part of, and part of Operation Anaconda, etc., etc. So this guy here, having those guys back to 93 and the stuff that they were involved in all the way through, no doubt, like in Afghanistan and stuff as well. Now they're getting ready to go into Iraq. It's impressive, man. It's hard to put into words, I think, the feelings, I suppose, the feelings that I had, of just admiration as I looked at the guys in SASR, even the guys that I wasn't in the squadron with, but looked at them and thought, oh man, far out. I just quickly made judgments and assessments, didn't know them, but they weren't on my cycle and they were already badged. So to me, they were already up here from the operational perspective and being on the front line, and just feeling starstruck for one, in awe, but also excited about being there and having the opportunity. Now we're about to have the rubber meet the road, and we're going to be prepping at training and preparing at such a higher and faster level, faster tempo than what I've been used to, because it's going to be probably even faster again once we deploy and go on live operations. So it's just nice hearing this guy. I know I cut him off, so we'll get back to it, and hearing him speak about, and a great question from Sean Ryan. Usually there's a guy that takes you under your wing or that you gravitate to, etc. So this guy, Brad Thomas, I think he said, shout out to that guy.
And we were pretty tight back then. I looked up to him like a big brother, still do to this day. But my whole team then, like all those guys were just solid, and very helpful, and all a little different in their own way. And yeah, we all do a pretty good job of hanging on even all these years later. Like that first team, we were together in combat for multiple rotations after that. And that didn't happen later on. Like guys would come and go or get injured or whatever. But yeah, that core group of 4 guys I was with for 3 or 4 combat rotations. And yeah, Brad was always kind of there as a mentor.
What was one of the biggest lessons you've learned, or you learned on that deployment, maybe through humiliation? Like, fuck, I can't believe I just did that. Did you make any of those mistakes on that first deployment?
I think the biggest lesson for me was trust your instincts. So I was on a rooftop, my very first target. Like I said, I'd already busted my nose and torn my nods off my head and whatever, tried to put them back together. But we were on the rooftop pulling security, and I was right side security looking north down this road. I think we had some Rangers in a couple blocking positions, or maybe the recce troop guys. We had some snipers or something out. And again, no shots fired, but we had aggressively taken this target down and secured some detainees, and we're just waiting to exfil basically. And this guy came running down the road with an AK, and I was the only one that saw him. And I said to Mikey, a teammate of mine, I said, hey, there's a dude running down the road with an AK. And something about it just didn't feel right. Like, he wasn't like he was running to get in the fight. It was like he was running to come look or like see how he could help. There was just something about his body language. And again, I'm a brand new guy in combat. And I said, so this guy running down the road with an AK, and Mikey, not looking in that direction, goes, so shoot him. Well within my rights, right?
Yep.
He's coming into our target area, rules of engagement. I was good.
It's crack up. That sounds like dare I say, a typical response from a senior operator. What are you doing? Bloody waiting for an invitation? Bloody shoot the guy. And he's just mentioned, well within his ROEs, this guy's running, a foreigner with an AK-47, a known type of weapon that the enemy that you are fighting and engaging with is known to carry and use against you in coalition forces. And he's running towards, but obviously Chris is getting a sense of something, and I think his comment was his biggest learning point was to trust his instinct. And it seems off to him. He said it didn't seem like the guy was running to come and get into the fight, running to, what did he say, see how he could help. I don't know how you differentiate between that in terms of somebody running to get into the fight and somebody running to see how they can help. Is a foreigner carrying weaponry that clearly is identifiable for the enemy in terms of what they use against you. So I would be thinking, well, who knows? I wasn't there on the ground that day. But as I hear this description of what he's just spoken about so far, I am thinking I'll probably just let the lads know, but probably in that context, if it fits into the parameters of what we're there to do, and now we've got detainees and we're pulling security to make sure that no other forces come in and ROEs and everything's in check, I'm thinking to myself, I'm either going to drop that guy and then radio it in, or I'm going to radio up and say I'm about to drop an unknown potential enemy combatant who's running into our compound or running towards our area armed with an AK-47, stand by, and then crack the rounds off and then let them know when I've dropped the target. That's what's going through my head, right or wrong. Let's hear what Chris says. Let's get back to it.
Could have smoked that guy. It just didn't feel right. And so I yelled back. I go, I don't think he needs to be shot. And then Mikey, being, a solid dude, I think radioed down, said, hey, there's a dude coming up the street. Because I'm, oblivious. Radioed down to the guys on that.
Wow. I don't think he needs to be shot. Look, I'm super interested to hear where this is going.
So this guy coming up the street with an AK. Well, they ended up stopping him. They didn't shoot him. They just stopped him. He was like the local law enforcement. He was actually friendly to us and a guy that had worked with, U.S. forces over there. And he just heard all the noises and commotion and thought somebody was in trouble and he needed to come help. And he was coming down the road to investigate. So nothing wrong with that dude. I would have been well within my rights to smoke him, but he's hopefully still alive today because I trusted my gut and I didn't just do the instinctive thing, which is guy with the gun running in the target area, pull the trigger.
Wow, that is awesome. That is awesome. Like, very different to the thoughts that I just described of what I was looking at, or what I was picturing in my head. Did not expect that to happen. And what is cool about that as well is that the guys that radioed it down, so the other senior guy let the other guys know, hey, there's somebody coming. They stop him, and then they manage to get. Now, whether that guy's telling the truth or not, neither here nor there, who knows? Maybe they confirmed his identity. Maybe they confirmed that he's local law enforcement or whatever, and that he was genuinely coming to help or to see if somebody needed help. Who knows? Maybe when he got there, he thought on his feet super quick and managed to come up with a cover story that was believable enough that they allowed him to go. And he's like, holy truck, I managed to live and fight another day, so to speak. Who knows? Don't know. And me describing and talking about us, I guess my take based on what I was hearing, that's sitting from the comfort of an armchair, right? That's not coming from the perspective of looking to get kill counts up or anything like that. And again, who's to say that that's what I would have done? I'm spitballing in terms of the reaction based on information that I see and hear in this interview, and pausing it to give my take, my thoughts based on just those bits of information before seeing and hearing the full context of what actually happened for him and how things turned out. So I'm stoked for him and for the guy that he didn't shoot, that he could have dropped again within the ROEs. And yeah, just one of those, I suppose, a really good example is what I should say. A really good example of just how complex, dynamic those environments are, how different operators will see and view things when they're presented with those different pictures, whether it's like that picture that he just described or his senior operator who didn't even look, who just said, well, shoot him then. Just pretty interesting and cool to put into perspective. Obviously very different for anybody that's on the ground in the situation in those moments at that time, that's then having to make those split-second decisions. Much easier when you're sitting and being a YouTuber reactor.
Oh, good for you.
So it stuck with me most of the time throughout the rest of my deployments. That served me well. There's a couple instances that I regret not pulling the trigger. But yeah, for the most part, it taught me to trust my gut.
Where do you regret not pulling the trigger?
Years later in Iraq, we hit a target in Fallujah, and
Fallujah, Lincoln, well-known hotspot, that place.
We were chasing a bomb maker, and we didn't know really anything about him. We had like a name, we had no image, we didn't know age, like none of that stuff. We had some familial tie and a name, and we hit this house, and there was a bunch of people in the house. And when I made entry into the room, across the room, there was a doorway, and this kid, to me, I mean kid, baby face, and I was a baby face guy and a young guy at the time, and I wouldn't have guessed he was but 14 years old. But he reached down and grabbed an AK, and I basically went from the high ready to on him to off safe, and I yelled, "Don't do it." And he threw the AK on the ground. Like he got to like here, and then he like saw me, and then he threw the AK on the ground, and I went straight at him across the room as the guys fanned out. And I think I pushed him initially, and he fell down. And then I kicked him a number of times, and I was amped up because I almost had to shoot, in my mind, this kid, and it was because he picked up a gun for whatever reason. So I was mad at him. So I was kicking him, not like really aggressively, just like, I can't believe you would do that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
It's maybe people might think you shouldn't be laughing at that, but I am laughing at it. I think it's funny, and the way that he's describing it and trying to, as we watch these people when they're talking, or at least for me, I try to imagine as best I can, like, what would I feel? And I think to myself, yeah, I'd be blinking, giving the guy a slap across the head. You bloody twat, what the hell are you doing, you bloody clown? Don't you go picking up the weapon to point it at us. Especially, he said he wouldn't have been any more than 14. That's what he thought. So I'm assuming this person must have just been a baby face, but maybe as a grown man, who knows? I do know some people like that look like they're bloody 12, but they're blinking in their mid-20s. So some people are just blessed. All right. I'm not one of those. But coming back to this, seemingly young person, the other parts, even leading up to that, he's entering the room. He's going from what did he say? The high ready to on him to safety catch off. That was really interesting to me, just hearing that piece, to safety off and finger, I would presume, then going from outside the trigger guard to resting on the trigger, if it wasn't already resting on the trigger. Just hearing him describe that, I'm assuming his finger's probably close to, but not at that stage, not sitting on the trigger until such time as he's gone off safe. His finger would definitely be sitting and at least touching the trigger right then. But that's interesting to me that he's not already off safe. The reason that I say that is because a lot of our training, and by the time we were in Iraq and on the ground, like, we were off safe before we even entered into a building. I was off safe before I jumped off the back of my vehicle. Like, my safety catch is off, my fingers outside the trigger guard, hand on the pistol grip, but you're moving towards. And some of those tasks, I had a paraminimi, which is just the shortened version of the LSWC-9 or a machine gun. And the paraminimi, just, shorter version of that longer weapon, but can carry more ammunition. And I was confident with it. It was my primary weapon that I used on a lot of jobs. And I chose to use it for some of those clearances jobs and things like that. But just hearing that is interesting to me. I don't know if they're still like that now, and or if that's just a part of their training. I mean, it's not a big deal, not a lot to go from safe to instant, but still, it's an extra movement when you're doing the type of work that these guys are clearly doing. So yeah, but anyway, let's get back to this in terms of he's kicking the young fella, or who he thinks is a young fella.
And
anyway.
another teammate grabbed me and was like, hey, it's cool. And we picked him up and flex cuffed him or whatever, and then went on with the target. Well, it turns out, so that dude he was just a young baby face guy, but he was like the area expert on IED construction.
Shit.
And he had been building bombs, and they had this garage facility where they were building those bombs and blah, 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 blah. But they put him, not us, another group of guys put him in a vehicle the next day to take him out and do a close target reconnaissance and get him to point out where all these facilities were after interrogation and all that. He said he would show them where all their stuff was. And it's in Fallujah, broad daylight. He's in the back of the van. They cuffed his wrists, so he's in the back of the van with his wrist cuffs, but they didn't cuff him to the vehicle. So he leads them through the market in downtown Fallujah. There's thousands of people out on the street, broad daylight. And he goes, see that building right there? And the dudes that were in the truck all turned and looked to the right, and he slid the window open and hopped out, ran into the crowd. So the guys got out of the vehicle. They pursued him for like 10 feet and then realized they're in a crowd of 1,000 Iraqis, and they're the only gringos standing in the market. So they thought better of it and they let him go.
Shit.
And so my mind for years.
Wow, far out. I mean, good call. Like, well, in hindsight, no, not a good call. He like you said, he regrets not pulling the trigger or squeezing the trigger in that particular situation. But at the time, you don't know, and you're presented with the pictures and the information again. Perfect example of the complexities once again being reinforced by this guy's experiences so far that he's touched on and elaborated on so far. But I wonder what happens. Like, obviously the guy got away, so no doubt he wouldn't have been happy about being captured. It's probably gonna do something.
That one was like, I don't know how many more people that dude killed. Like, how many more people his bombs killed, how many more people he taught how to make bombs. And I carried that one around. And I don't disagree with my decision to pull the trigger. Like, especially then, like he was starting to become a threat, and then he chose not to be. And I gave it the benefit of the doubt. I did what the good guys do. And I didn't shoot him.
What he said just there. He did what the good guys do. Again, a testament to SF, the selection processes, the psych evaluations, the aptitude testing, the physical mental stresses and pressure that is applied to look for and identify and recruit as best they can the right types of people to serve in that type of work. And yeah, like just one of those things, something that he carries with him because he doesn't know how many more bombs that bloody little retard went on to make, create, and or detonate, and thereby executing, whether it's coalition forces or whether he detonated and executed mums and sons and daughters and families and old people and young people at a market, at a local market. It's just, yeah, like I'm sure that image of that guy must replay in Chris's head a lot of times, probably more times than he'd like to remember, I would imagine.
And but yeah, I carried that and went, man, who knows? Like, should I have shot that guy? Like,
Yeah.
He gave me the opportunity. I would have been well within my rights. He picked that weapon up like he was going to use it. I just gave him a split second long enough to get rid of it, and he didn't get shot.
Just the professionalism and that this guy's showing, the restraint and that professional restraint. Like, he could do a heck of a lot of damage, could have done a lot of damage, could have got kills up on his first deployment, his first job, that first task with the guy running down the street. Chose not to because he trusted his gut. This opportunity, he could have dropped that guy. That person was picking up the weapon. I think he said he got it to around about his waist or whatever. You can still spray and pray from the hip. If you're an enemy, if you're a good guy, however you want to word it. So like he said, well within his rights in both instances to drop both of those people. He exercised his better judgment, or what he deemed to be his better judgment, his professional judgment, his discipline, his restraint, in those moments. High pressure, high stress. You don't know whether the person or persons are good or bad. That first one, he didn't know. Trusted his gut. The second one, probably a high possibility the guy's running for an AK, got it next to it, or could be just that's part of their home self-defense makeup. Turns out he was the primary guy that they would have been looking for. Yeah, like two very different situations, something that he carries with him. Hindsight's a beautiful thing, eh? To be able to look back and go, man, I wish I had pulled the trigger on that one. Glad I didn't pull the trigger on this one. But anyway, lots to take in. I've yapped on enough. I've for this one, because that's a little over 30 minutes now, so I'll wrap this one up here. But yeah, man, that's cool. Like, this guy's got obviously massive amount of credibility, massive amount of experience, done some really cool SHIT as far as I'm concerned and from what I can tell. And no wonder he's got a 2 or 3 part interview here on the Sean Ryan Show. Actually, that story that he's just spoken about, I think somebody did comment on one of my videos a little while ago that something to do with this one. I'd have to go back and have a look, but I think somebody did comment about Chris VanSant on the Sean Ryan Show talking about something, and maybe it was that one. But anyway, appreciate your time. If you drop by here and if you stuck around this long, whatever your thoughts and comments are, feel free to whack them in. And yeah, you'll see me on the next one.